Hey Cassie. Hey Aaron. Hey Poker Vibe. Hey Jenny O. What's going on, Karen? Hello, Carol Moore. Hello, Dawn. Hello, everyone. Great to see you. Hey, Candy. Good to see you. Goldson's nice that you're here. Hello, Alexis. Howdy, Willie. Good evening, everyone. Lemon Peel Angelfish is here. That's fantastic. It's so nice to see you, madam. I hope that our tomorrow is doing well. Zoe, good to see you. Hello, Jennifer. Hello, Miss Williams. I think metformin is a fascinating drug. There's some promise that it may actually help with some remyelination, although I think the jury is still out. I think that it can be helpful in the setting of MS as creating a fasting state in the body. So I think it's one of those drugs that we kind of want to look out for. Hey, Angela, it's great to see you. We've got some wonderful moderators who have jumped online. Hello, Elizabeth in Mansfield, Ohio. Welcome, welcome. Hello, Sterling. It is a kind of cold and windy Wednesday afternoon or evening here in Columbus, Ohio. Definitely approaching winter rapidly. I finished up all my work for the evening and was thinking about you guys and wanted to jump online and say hello, howdy, hi. Neuro Nerdy is in the house. If you guys aren't familiar with Neuro Nerdy X, got a great YouTube channel putting out some really nice videos, so definitely check out his work. Randy Berry, it's great to see you. Hello. Look at this. There's 73 of you that have jumped online. This is phenomenal. I wasn't sure whether any of the village was out there tonight. I am glad to see you all. What do you think about doing an impromptu Ask Me Anything MS? Let's set up a polling chat. Should we do an impromptu AMA MS tonight? Chantel says yes. Jerome's got fire already. Wow, this is great. Big Al's getting ready for his first Briumvi. Congratulations, that'll be exciting. Steve and Becca, great to see you. Hello. Always eager to learn, Sterling says. Pamela's in the house, says sure. Let's vote in that chat. Let's see if I can post the... How do I start the poll here? You'd think I know how to do this by now. All right, there, we started the poll. I'll give you guys a chance to answer the question. If we can get to 100 people online, I'm going to turn the camera on and we're going to fire it up today. I can't believe there's 91 of you that have already jumped online. I don't have any new information about clemastine, Laura. Again, that's another drug that has some potential benefit for remyelination. It's a cousin of Benadryl. A couple of my patients have tried it out and complained that it gets folks a little too, a little too tired. Now, Nerdy Neuro X is reading the ultra-processed food book, Ultra-Processed People, and I had the same reaction. Oh my God, it's absolutely crazy. Thank you for watching that video. Candy Duncan's got a great question. There's 91 of you that have jumped online. As you jump online, kindly share where you're jumping in from. I love going back through the chat and seeing where this growing global online village has amassed from. Also, when you ask questions, please keep in mind that I can't diagnose or treat you on the interwebs, and it would be best if you could ask questions in a generalizable way so that everyone can benefit. There are some great questions coming through the chat right now. Linda has a superb question. What drug is good for RA and MS? That would be rituximab or any of the B-cell depleters. Lemon Peel Angelfish, one of our amazing moderators and a fantastic, amazing human being, hails from New Zealand. That's why I asked her how our tomorrow is doing, since she is in my tomorrow right now. UK representing, fantastic. What time is it in the UK right now? We've got Naples, Florida in the house. We've got Southern Cali representing. The Netherlands are in the house. Hello, hello, Boston, Massachusetts. This is fantastic, guys. Thank you so much for being here. 106 of you just jumped online, and you know what that means. Hi! Hey, everyone. Hello, howdy, hi. Aaron Boster here. I'm so excited to jump online, turn this camera on, and there's already 106 of you that saw fit to take a moment out of your evening to talk with me. Thank you very, very much. That's super cool. As you jump online, as always, tell me where you're jumping on from. It's great to see Sandra from Dayton saying hello. It's great to see you. Karen Munley is in the house. This is phenomenal. We've got Indiana representing. Cassie Sky is in the house. Thank you, everyone. It's really fun to be here with you. I've been doing these live streams now at least since the Boster Center started back in 2020. And it's the highlight of my month. I love turning on the camera and answering your questions or delivering didactic lectures. And I will still be doing my traditional Saturday morning live stream. Let me look at the calendar because I think that's right around the corner. Survey says, yep, this Saturday, the 23rd. So in just a few short days, I'll jump online for our scheduled live stream. That'll occur at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So mark your calendars. And I hope to see you then. I am blown away that I'm seeing you right now. There's 116 of you that have jumped online. There are some great questions already in the chat, and I'm going to scroll back up so I can find a really great question. Let me see if I can find it back here. Where'd it go? All right, we'll just have, there it is. All right, so let me put that up so everyone can see it. This is a question from Linda. That's a super question. Is there a drug that can treat both rheumatoid arthritis and multiple sclerosis? Rheumatoid arthritis is a very common autoimmune phenomenon, and if you as a human being have one autoimmune condition, you're at a higher risk of having a second one, we believe. So I have plenty of patients in my practice that have both rheumatoid arthritis and multiple sclerosis. Now, we very frequently have success in using a medicine which is a B-cell depleter. So the traditional medicine used in rheumatoid arthritis is rituxan, and that was the first B-cell depleter tested out in multiple sclerosis. It doesn't have an FDA indication for multiple sclerosis, but it can be used with great success. It's a B-cell depleter like ocrelizumab, Ocrevus, like Briumvi, like Kesimpta. These are all B-cell depleters. So any one of those would work to treat both rheumatoid arthritis and multiple sclerosis. There's an interesting difference in the therapeutic approach when a rheumatologist is treating someone with RA as compared to when an MS neurologist is treating MS. It's very common, I see, a rheumatologist will put someone on a oral immunosuppressant, something like methotrexate, less often maybe Imuran or Cellset, but oftentimes methotrexate, and in addition use a B-cell depleter like rituximab. In MS, we haven't gained comfort in doing that yet. A lot of MS treaters have a lot of nervousness surrounding stacking immunosuppression for fear that we would increase the risk of infection. Bluntly, I think rheumatologists have been doing this much longer than neurologists. I think they have a much greater level of comfort in navigating risk. I hope that one day MS neurologists will catch up. And in my patients that have both RA and MS, most of them are on some type of B-cell depleter, rituximab, Ocrevus, what have you, and they're on methotrexate, and it works very, very well. There's other options which can be used. There's a drug which is used very commonly in rheumatoid arthritis. It's a pill oftentimes given with methotrexate, and that drug is called Arava, or leflunomide is the long name. And when you take a pill of Arava and swallow it, and it hits your stomach, the first metabolite is Aubagio, teriflunomide. Now, many of you are familiar with Aubagio. This is one of the 28 options FDA approved for the treatment of multiple sclerosis. It's a low, medium efficacy drug, and it's really good, in my opinion and experience, with disease progression, and with cleaning up MRI atrophy. And so we use it not infrequently to treat MS. And you could use Arava to treat both RA and MS, or you could use Aubagio to treat RA and MS. And so there are two classes of drugs, both this small pill, Aubagio, and the Ocrevus, Kesimpta, Briumvi, rituximab B-cell depleters. All of those can do double duty, treating both rheumatoid arthritis and multiple sclerosis. That was a great question, and thank you very much for being here, Linda. Thank you very much for asking it. There's 149 of you that have jumped online. Wow, that's awesome. Thank you very, very much. This is an impromptu Ask Me Anything live stream. I finished up my work for clinic, and I was just jonesing to spend some time with you guys, and so thank you so much for being here. Let's go back to the chat and look for a few other questions. I saw some really good ones that are popping up. So let me scroll through here and find one that I saw earlier. Let me see if I can find it. All right. So here is 1R2A3W4, and that's quite a name. So hello. Writes, I was diagnosed a few years ago. I can't quit smoking cigarettes. How bad is that? And how urgent is my need to quit? So I think it's really bad. And I'm not saying that because I'm a doctor, and I'm not saying that to be mean to you. In fact, I have no value judgment here. I assume that you're an adult, and if you choose to smoke, that's your decision. I don't feel that it's my right to tell you that you're not allowed to do that. I don't think I have the right to be paternalistic. What I do feel an obligation to do, particularly in clinic, is to educate. And education is really, really important, because it's my opinion that if I can help you or someone else who's struggling with smoking understand the risk, it'll help you make your decision about whether you want to continue to smoke or not. Now, the reality is that smoking, where you take a carbon-based thing and light it on fire and you create smoke and then you suck in that smoke, is very, very pro-inflammatory. Now, we're all familiar with the fact that it increases the risk of stroke, it increases the risk of heart attack, and those are bad things. It increases the risk of a multitude of cancers. In fact, smoking-related illnesses are the leading cause of death amongst humans. But that's not why I, as an MS neurologist, strongly recommend against smoking. The reason I, as an MS neurologist, recommend that you quit smoking is because it speeds up your disease upwards of twice as fast. You could speed, 50% faster. So you can really, really speed up your MS by smoking. And that terrifies me. So if you think about speeding up your MS by 50%, if you quit, you can slow it back down. And I want to talk about that 50% number, because that is a really, really large effect size. When you think about the very first drugs that came out to treat MS, and these drugs are the injections. We call them platform therapies or injection therapies. This is the Avonex, Rebif, Extavia, Betaseron, Plegridy, Copaxone, Glutopa, those drugs. They're not very effective. They are able to decrease relapse rate by only 30%. They're able to slow disability by 30%. Quitting smoking has a larger effect size than those drugs. And so I also like to point out that smoking is the most modifiable risk factor. It's the very best way to make your MS worse by smoking, unfortunately. And the flip side is true. It's the biggest impact, the biggest bang for your buck, not smoking. And so I really appreciate you asking that question. You know, I'll share with you, quitting smoking is amongst one of the hardest things for an adult human to do. It's very, very hard to quit smoking. And the data on quitting cold turkey is near 0% success rate. And that's not because someone lacks willpower. It's because nicotine is exceedingly addictive. It's very, very hard not to smoke cigarettes if you have gotten used to smoking them, if you're addicted to cigarettes. And when someone is quitting, there's different phases. And so there's the pre-contemplative phase. So the pre-contemplative phase is a polite doctor way of saying that you're going to give someone the bird and say, I'm going to smoke, and you can screw off. And you're not thinking about quitting, you're not considering quitting, and you're going to smoke, you're going to smoke. And when a patient is in the pre-contemplative phase, I don't try to help them quit because it won't be successful. They're not ready yet. What I do instead is I want to let them know that I would love for them not to smoke. I want them to know that not smoking will slow down their MS, which I think is kind of an awesome idea. And I want to let them know that if in the future they're ready to quit smoking, I'm at the ready to help them. And we just leave it at that. And what I'll tell someone is, you're allowed to smoke, of course, and I'm allowed to ask how it's going. And so we can have a conversation where I say, hey, how's the smoking going? And you can say, smoking's going great. And as long as you know that I'm worried about it, as long as you know that I would like to help you quit, as long as you understand that it's speeding up your MS, then it's on you. And that's the way that I approach someone who's in the pre-contemplative phase of quitting smoking, where they're just not ready yet. Now, all this talk is making me a bit thirsty, and you know what that means. It's time for the MS Water Challenge. When I drink, you drink. Oh wow, that is really tasty. I love me some seltzer water. Now, I also don't always recommend that people drink this late in the evening. And so if you don't want to participate in the MS Water Challenge at near 8 p.m., I respect that. But I definitely enjoy my seltzer water. Now, sometimes people who smoke go from the pre-contemplative phase into the contemplative phase. And I describe the contemplative phase of smoking when you're still smoking, but you're going to listen to me when we talk about not smoking. You're still smoking, but you're going to think about maybe not smoking. You're contemplating it. And that is a really great place to be. I imagine that the person who asked this question, 1R2A3W4, might be in the contemplative phase because they asked this question. And I think that's really awesome. When someone's in the contemplative phase, I want to try to help them consider things that we can do to try to help quit smoking. Excuse me. So there's success if we can be planful. And the more planful you are, the better. So let's start to talk about a couple ways that we can contemplate in the contemplative phase what we might do to try to help quit smoking. So before you quit smoking, keep smoking, all right, so don't stop yet, says the doctor to the smoker. And I want you to think about the cigarettes that you smoke during the day. Some of those cigarettes are kind of dumb, like the one that you smoke in the car and you let it burn down and you throw it out the window. Or, there's some cigarettes that are not all that important. It's a habit, you need some nicotine, but there's a couple cigarettes that almost every smoker has, which are emotionally charged cigarettes. They're not normal cigarettes. And the most common ones that I hear about is the first cigarette of the day. I wake up, and if you talk to me before I smoke a cigarette, I will kill you. I'm just joking. It's a really, really emotionally important cigarette. It's because it's a transition cigarette. It's an emotional cigarette. I'm now going to start my day. So that first cigarette in the morning is doing more than just providing you with nicotine. It's also providing this emotional thing. Another cigarette, which oftentimes is very emotionally charged, is the after dinner cigarette. So I finish my dinner, clear the table, now I'm going to sit down, I'm going to smoke a cigarette. And oftentimes that cigarette is a really key cigarette because it's a signal to your body, it's a signal to you. I'm now transitioning off my work day, I'm now home, I'm now going to decompress, and it's an emotionally charged cigarette. And so if you are listening to this little chit-chat and you're a smoker, I bet that you recognize a couple cigarettes which are really, really key. Now, normally when someone's trying to quit on their own, they drop the dumb cigarettes first. And time again, I've seen patients where they're smoking 20 cigarettes a day, and they'll get down to 15, which is great, and they'll get down to 10, which is super. They'll get down to 5, which is really great, and then they get down to 3, and they can't quit the 3. Why not? Because those 3 are the emotionally charged cigarettes. That's the first cigarette of the day. It's the cigarette right when they get home from work. It's the cigarette right after dinner. They're these emotionally charged cigarettes that they can't get rid of. So here's a pro tip, right? The pro tip is identify one of those cigarettes. So let's do the morning cigarette, all right? I wake up and before I do anything, I'm going to get my cigarette out and I'm going to smoke it. What I want you to do is I want you to keep smoking. Don't quit yet. But I want you to identify that time point, that first cigarette, and I want you to deny the time point. So what I mean by that is wake up, get your cigarette out, pack the pack down, Pull the cigarette out, look at it, woo, and smell it, woo, and then do anything you want except light it. You can put it in your mouth. You could walk around staring at it. You could put it behind your ear. I want you to set an alarm on your smartphone for 1 hour, 60 minutes. And when that hour is over, smoke the hell out of the cigarette. What we're doing by making you wait an hour is we're decoupling the nicotine delivery device from the emotionally charged value of the cigarette. You're still going to smoke the cigarette. It will be smoked. You've identified it. You've smelled it. You've got it in your hand. But you're going to make yourself wait an hour. And if you are able to make yourself wait an hour consistently, that morning cigarette loses its emotional importance. It loses the value that it had. It's just a nicotine delivery device. So if you can go through the process of identifying those key cigarettes and removing the time points, and I wouldn't do all three at the same time, I would do them in order. When you later go to quit smoking, there are no key cigarettes, and you're going to be much, much more successful. I'll give you one more pro tip, which is helpful during the pre-contemplative phase. There are a tremendous amount of triggers which trigger a smoker to smoke. For example, a lot of people, they tend to want a cigarette when they're in a bar drinking a beer. So a lot of people, when they see a beer, they want a cigarette, and there's an association there. There's also friends that we have, and there are smoking friends. They're friends that we hang out with and we smoke with, and that's what we do with them. And if you spend time with that person, you're going to want to smoke cigarettes. When you smoke, say, in your living room, the materials of the living room, like the carpet, the drapes, they become impregnated with a smoke smell. And when you smell that, it's going to trigger you potentially to want to smoke a cigarette. If your spouse smokes and you hear him crinkling the cellophane on the wrapper, that's going to trigger you to want a cigarette. So you have to do some deep reflection and identify triggers. And you want to try to remove as many triggers as possible. You might need not to frequent a bar that allows smoking, right? You might need to literally have your carpets professionally cleaned. You might need to tell your girlfriend that you smoke with, honey, I'm going to prepare to maybe not smoke. I'm kind of contemplating it. So if I get together with you, we can't go to our picnic table out back where we smoke. We need to do something someplace where I'm not allowed to smoke. And before you quit smoking, I want you to try really, really hard to remove those triggers. So we could go on and talk about it for quite some time, but in the spirit of answering some other questions, I'm going to move on. Now, I do want to say that there's the next phase, which is the quitting phase. I guess I am going to say a few more words, I'm sorry. But this is a really important topic. Quitting needs to be a public service announcement. Okay? When you decide to quit cigarettes, you can't just tell yourself, all right? You need to make a public announcement. And what I want you to do is I want you to identify the day you're going to quit before you quit, all right? So you've gotten rid of the key cigarettes and you've identified the triggers and you say, okay, I'm going to quit January 1st. I want you to call your grandma and say, Grandma, I'm going to quit smoking January 1st. I want you to call your mom. Say, Mom, I'm going to quit smoking January 1st. I want you to tell your friends at work, guys, everybody listen, I'm going to quit January 1st. And the reason that you need to do that is you're going to need your village, your community to help you quit smoking. They need to hold you accountable. Because if you decide that you're going to quit and you don't tell anyone, then you relapse, nobody knows that you're trying to quit. It makes it really easy to smoke. But if you told your grandmother that you're quitting January 1st, you better believe that she's going to say, honey, I thought you said you were quitting. And it's going to help keep you accountable. There are many medicines, not many, but there are medicines that help people quit smoking. On this channel, I have videos where I talk about some of my favorite drugs. And one of my favorite drugs is called Wellbutrin, or bupropion. And Wellbutrin is an antidepressant, but one of the really neat things about it is it removes cravings. And so I will sometimes put someone on Wellbutrin months before they're getting ready to quit to aid in their ability to quit. I've also used the medication Chantix with great success. Now, the last phase of quitting, so we go from the pre-contemplative to the contemplative phase to the active quitting phase to the hard thing, which is maintenance. And maintenance is a constant ongoing battle because someone who used to smoke might want to smoke again. And so we just have to be honest about that, and we have to actively try to keep in mind that it's not just over. All right, so that was a very long answer. Thank you very much for asking that question, and I wish you the very best of luck. I love these questions. There's some really, really good ones. So Richard says, is CoQ10 good for MS? So CoQ10 has a little bit of data. Some people feel like it gives you energy. And I've never been blown away by the data for CoQ10. It certainly is not going to hurt you. And I do have some patients, when they take CoQ10, they really feel like it does help their energy levels. So food for thought. I wouldn't run out and buy CoQ10. I would actually rather you spend the money on eating healthy, whole foods, single ingredient foods, really healthy food quality. I would rather you spend the money on that than on CoQ10. Let's keep flipping through and try to find some other questions. Whoops, I just scrolled past some. Someone said, what are your thoughts about Ocrevus? So I really like Ocrevus. Ocrelizumab is one of the B-cell depleters. And it's one of the most effective drugs that's available to treat MS. It's no longer the only B-cell depleter that's FDA approved. We have Briumvi, which is also a twice-a-year infusion. We have Kesimpta, which is a monthly self-injection. And off-label, we have rituximab. And so there's a lot of different ways of using B-cell depletion to treat MS, and they're very, very effective. I was very involved in the clinical trials for Ocrevus. I really think the drug is outstanding, and I use it a lot in my practice. It's not without its tricks and traps, and it's not for everyone, but I do find it to be a very, very effective treatment. And so that would kind of be like saying, like, I'm 16 and I'm going to get a car and someone gave me a Ferrari. Like, I guess I'll drive a Ferrari. It's a really good drug. All right, so let's see what other questions are cooking here. We've got Vancouver Island in the house. Kendra, thank you for being here. I just saw that Jen McGraw is on. Jen McGraw is a wonderful moderator. Jen, it's great to see you. I hope you are doing great. I hope your little one's doing great. Linda White says that she used Wellbutrin to quit smoking. That's really cool. I'm really glad to hear that, and congratulations. Now, this is interesting. And so, Indrico, and if I said your name wrong, I apologize. Enrico said, hello, Dr. Boster. Well, howdy. Consuming salty foods brings on numbness and tingling. Where's the rest of the question? Do you know why this happens? Is it an inflammatory thing? So I don't know why it happens, but I do know that it happens. I hear about it all the time. Today I saw a wonderful patient of mine, a really great guy and a great wife, and they were both there. And he shared that when he drinks like a sugary pop, like a soda pop, that his symptoms worsen. And I hear this sometimes with salt as well. I assume that it's a pro-inflammatory thing, but I don't really know. But what I do know is you're not the only person to report that to me, and I think it's really insightful of you to make that connection so that you can then inform some of your decisions about what you want and don't want to eat. I am so thirsty, so it's time for another MS Water Challenge. Woo! That's really good. Let's change up the scene. So we've got our river scene going on here. There's 189 of you here. That's so cool. Thank you very much on this Wednesday evening, 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Here's a question from M. So M writes, how important is MRI Machine Strength in diagnosis and progression tracking? Could a 0.7 T MRI machine cause a delay in diagnosis or missed lesions that were previously identified with a stronger machine? Yes. So the MRI is the most potent, valuable biomarker which we currently have for MS. So a biomarker is a test that gives you insight into the human and their condition. So we take a picture of the brain and spinal cord, and it teaches us about the structural integrity of the brain and spinal cord, and if there's new lesions, which is a doctor word for damage, like brain damage. And so when you have an MS diagnosis, or when you're monitoring an MS medicine, we get MRIs as one of our key biomarkers to see how we're doing. So today in clinic, I looked at no less than 12 different MRIs with patients throughout the day. And each time, I'm very, very particular about what kind of scan I want to get, because the type of machine and the protocol matters. So let's talk about that a little bit. MRIs are magnets. They're very, very powerful magnets. The way they work is actually fascinating. So when you go inside the MRI machine and it makes the bang, 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 or bing, 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 those noises, what it's doing is it's turning on and off a magnet, on and off, on and off. And when the magnet turns on, about 1% of the protons, so the atoms of your body, stand at attention, all right, because the magnet pulls them upright. And when you turn the MRI off, it relaxes. And then you turn it back on and it stands up and then it relaxes. And the relaxation of the proton is different in fat as compared to water. So it falls down. The relaxation time is different. And that can create contrast. And so you can see the different tissues. So we have a different appearance of water and fat. And through that, we can see images of the brain and spinal cord really, really well. And the stronger the magnet, the better the picture. So the very first MRIs came out in about 1983, 1985, and they were very weak by today's standards, 0.7 Tesla. So a Tesla is the unit of strength. A standard community MRI in Midwestern United States is a 1.5 Tesla. And I don't do imaging on a 1.5 Tesla because it's not good enough for my patients. It is my strong preference to use a 3 Tesla MRI. So 3 Tesla MRIs are orders of magnitude more potent than a 1.5. And a 1.5 is way the hey better than a 0.7. I don't think a 0.7 MRI is worth the money. I would rather you go take your family out to dinner than spend money on a 0.7 Tesla MRI. Because if we're going to take a picture of the holiest of holies, the supercomputer that runs the body, the brain, or the superhighway, the spinal cord that connects the brain to the body and back up, I want a really, really good image. I want a really good picture. And the quality, what you can see, improves with a higher field scanner. So there are studies done that have been published, and they're not new studies, that look at an MS brain with a 1.5 versus a 3T. You see more with the 3T. You miss things on the 1.5T. And so if you're using a 0.7, that is not acceptable at all. Now, there's actually a lot more to it than just the strength of the MRI. When you have an MRI, a radiologist has written an MRI protocol. Like they've programmed how the scanner is going to physically operate. And one of the things that's really, really important is that with higher field scanning, you can do more. You can get more done in a shorter period of time. So oftentimes when someone comes to see me and they've had a low field scan, like a 1.5 Tesla scan, the thickness of the cuts are really thick, like 5 millimeters. And they'll cover the entire brain in only like 25 slices, which means they're skipping a lot of brain. Why are they skipping? Because it takes too long, because it's money, and because they want to get you through the scan faster. When we do 3 Tesla imaging, the protocol that I use at the Boster Center for MS includes 1 millimeter cuts. So very, very fine cuts, no gap. And we cover the entire brain in 155 slices. So you can't hide anything on my MRI. There's no gaps. And that allows us to see more. And the MRI doesn't take any longer because the 3T can do that very, very fast. Also, I like to measure brain volume. So when I get an MRI, I get brain volumes. I particularly am fond of looking at the whole brain volume and then the thalamic volume, which is a structure in the deep center of the brain. And when you do high field imaging with no gaps, you can calculate brain volumes. And so the strength of the MRI is relevant. What I would look for, guys, is I would look for a 3T MRI, and I would want to make sure they're using what's called an MS protocol. Because typically the MS protocol, if done properly, is going to have all the different angles that you want and the different sequences with really good cuts. That's not always true, but it's generally true. And that was a great question. MS Water Challenge, yo. All right, let's look for some other questions here. Let's see. Sorry, I'm looking through. All right, so this is a very relevant question. This is Tyler B. And Tyler writes, do you have any suggestions on how to sleep decent at night? I have relapsing MS, and I feel like I can never get into a good deep sleep or feel well rested. So, Tyler, I'm really glad you asked that question because it is super, super important. And if you're not getting restorative sleep, you're really cutting your legs off before you even start your next day. Sleep is remarkably important, and yet most red-blooded Americans don't budget for enough sleep. They're not getting restorative sleep. They're not in bed long enough to get restorative sleep. And unfortunately, there's lots of different reasons why people can be woken up throughout the night and really wake up feeling exhausted. So this is a very big topic, and I have several YouTube videos on my channel about sleep and sleep hygiene. But let's just talk a little bit about it. So the first person, someone type a number between 3 and 12. So right now, someone type a number in the chat, 3 through 12. Give me a number. All right, I'm looking for a number. 12. All right, so the first number that I saw was 12. So we're going to do 12 things to help sleep. All right, so we're going to go with 12. That was the first number I saw. Thank you, everyone, for participating. So now, as I say this, mark down the number because I'm not going to be able to count to 12 as I'm talking. All right, so we're going to do 12 different ways that we can get a good night's sleep. The first thing that we can do is we can avoid alcohol before bed. So it was popular in the ancient days of yesteryear to have a nightcap, all right, where you have a little bourbon or something before bed. And the idea was that would help you induce sleep. And it can help you fall asleep, but it can cause a rebound insomnia because alcohol is a sedative hypnotic. And when the alcohol wears off about 2 or 3 in the morning, bing, you wake up. And that can be devastating. And so avoiding alcohol before bed, really avoiding alcohol after the dinner hour, is a really good idea. Number 2, so someone write 2 in the chat so I don't lose my place, is to avoid caffeine after the noon hour. Now, not everybody is super sensitive to caffeine, but many people are. And many people may drink a soda or something that has caffeine in it late into the evening. And I find that if you can cut caffeine out at noon, it'll serve you very, very well. Caffeine is a stimulant. And so if you're having an iced tea with dinner, if you're having a Coke in the afternoon, these things don't seem like a big deal, but they can really interrupt your sleep. All right, and so that's the second one. Number 3. So if someone would write up number 3 for me. Number 3 is to try to drink 2/3 of all the water you're gonna drink in the first half of your day. When you drink water, you make urine for 6 hours. Many people I know, and I'm guilty of this sometimes, bring water to the bedside table. They're literally drinking water up until the moment they fall asleep. And then they wonder why they're waking up 3-4 times a night to go pee-pee. Well, that's because they're making urine all night long. So if you stop drinking fluids after dinner, presuming you're having dinner like 6 o'clock, and you're going to bed around like 10 or 11 or something like that, you're not going to be making urine as often while you're sleeping, and so you're not going to be woken up with what's called nocturia, which is doctor talk for getting up way too often to pee. Now, if you tend to drink a lot of water at night, generally what that means is you're not drinking enough water during the day. If you do a better job of drinking water during the day, drinking 2/3 of all the water you're going to drink in the first half of your day, which means by lunch, you're not going to be thirsty after dinner. So I want you to really hit the water hard when you're awake, particularly in the morning. Breakfast, drink water. After breakfast, drink water. Work break, drink water. Lunch, drink water. You really need to stack the water in the first part of your day. And that way you'll be able to stop drinking water at night. All right, so that's number 3. So we're doing 12 of these. Number 4. So someone write down 4 for me, please. Number 4 is some form of exercise. Exercise does a lot of great things for MS. I mean, heck, exercise does a lot of great things for humans. One of the things that exercise does, which I find so helpful, is it helps consolidate sleep. So you may notice on the days that you get in a good solid walk, and the days that you do your Pilates, on the days that you do your physical therapy, that you sleep better. And that's not by chance. And so if you're having trouble sleeping, try doing a bit of exercise. Now, you don't need to climb Mount Everest, all right? So you don't have to do 12 rounds of boxing. You can do anything. But getting a little bit of exercise is a really, really great way of helping facilitate sleep. All right. So now we're on number 5. You guys are really helping me because I'm not going to be able to remember all these numbers. So we're doing 12 things that can help you sleep at night. So number 5 has to deal with the bedroom. You need to have no lights in the bedroom. Allow me to repeat, no lights in the bedroom. You should never have a TV in your bedroom. Never. No TV in the bedroom. You should not bring your phone into the bedroom because that's a light. If you have an alarm clock with a red light on it, you need to put duct tape over that light. Any light that you have is going, if it hits your eyeballs and you can see it, teaches the pineal gland inside your head that it's morning time. And so when you are trying to sleep, it needs to be pitch black for real, right? And so if you talk to any sleep doctor, they're going to want you to remove all the screens, all the lights out of your bedroom. You need to have blackout curtains. I have some, my bedroom is across the hallway here. I have these awesome blackout curtains. And when I close them, it shuts out all the light. And so making your bedroom pitch black is actually very, very important. Number 6, it needs to be quiet in your bedroom, right? So the nighttime is the right time for sleeping. It needs to be quiet. So you can't have someone screaming in the next room playing a video game and waking you up. You can't have the dog having a fight with the cat and waking you up. You need your spouse or your bed partner not to make a ruckus when they come into the bedroom and wake you up. It needs to be quiet. So it needs to be quiet and it needs to be pitch black. Number 7, it needs to be a cooler temperature. You don't want it to be too hot. When you get too hot, you can start sweating in bed and you can wake up being overheated. And so keeping the bedroom somewhat cool can actually be very, very helpful. All right, quick water. Number 8 is the most important, arguably. And number 8 is that the bed only has 2 purposes. There are only 2 things that we do in bed. We do not eat in bed. We do not watch TV in bed. We do not doom scroll on our phone in bed. We do not perseverate in bed. The only 2 things that we do in bed are very easy to sort out: sex and sleep. So you should be able to discern whether you're having sex or whether you're sleeping. And if not, then we need to have a different conversation because you're doing something terribly wrong. The bed is only for 2 purposes. And the reason that's so important is many of us, we get in bed and then that's the biggest couch in the house. So we're chilling in bed, we're watching TV, we're doom scrolling, we're answering emails, we're preparing for the next day. We're sitting in bed and considering all the things that went on during the day. The bed, you're teaching your body, is where you worry. The bed is where you do your homework. The bed is where you talk on the phone. The bed is where you watch your most favorite TV shows. And that is not helpful for sleep. We need to associate the bed with only 2 things. And if you're in your bed and 20 minutes has gone by and you're not actively having sex and you're not asleep, you need to exit your bed. Now, the reason you need to exit your bed is we need to retrain your body and your brain that the bed is only for sleeping and sex. So what we need to do in order to make that successful is after you get your proverbial nightgown on and it's bedtime, all right, I need you to sit in a chair somewhere and you got to get all the yayas out. Okay, so do your doom scrolling, do your perseverating, do your reading, watch your show, think about your day, get all that stuff out of your head until you think, okay, my yayas are all out. Now I'm going to get into bed, all right? And when you're in bed, the bed is for sleeping, all right? So if you've been in bed for 20 minutes and you're not asleep and you're clearly not having sex, exit your bed. Now, what you do when you exit your bed is really important. And this would be number 9. If you wake up and you need to get out of your bed, you need to not turn the lights on, right? You need to not grab your phone. because the light from your phone will teach your body it's time to wake up. So you have to keep in mind, this is not the time to get a little work done, all right? It's sleeping time. And so what I need you to do, and Pamela said it great, read a gentle book. Sit in dim light, and read a really boring passage from Glamour magazine from 1990, right? Or needlepoint, or meditate. Do something which is relaxing. Don't read a scary book. Do not turn on the TV because you're supposed to be sleeping. And sit there until you think, all right, I think I can get up now. I think I can finally go to sleep. You get back in bed. If 20 minutes goes by and you're not asleep, you're not having sex, you exit. Now, number 10 is that you have to have a set wake time, a time that you wake up. And that needs to be fixed. It can't be variable. So people who are working, oftentimes they handle this very well because they have to get up to go to work. So because they have to be at work at, say, 8, they have to get up at like 6:30 or something like this. For my patients that aren't working full-time, that's a little bit harder. And you need to set an alarm, and it needs to become religious. When the alarm goes off, you have to get out of bed. Now, if you are practicing this stuff that I'm sharing with you, it's going to suck for about 3 weeks. Because you're going to be up and back to bed, and then out of bed, and then back to bed, and then out of bed and back to bed, and then you got to wake up at 6:30. And you're going to be really, really tired. And it's going to be stinky. And you're going to say, Boster! But if you keep to the code, all the things we're talking about, over a period of about 3 weeks, you will start to acclimate, and you'll start to be so tired that you'll start to condense your sleep. You'll start to condense your sleep, and you'll be able to get a much better sleep during the nighttime. Right? Number 11 is no napping. All right. Now, if you have to nap, it needs to be a short nap, like a half an hour. Okay. And you do not nap in the bed because the bed is for sleeping at night. You need to nap with clothes on the couch in the living room, and you need to set an alarm, and you need to have a very short nap. I have some patients where they nap for like 3.5 hours. That's not a nap. That's fracturing your sleep. And so that is really, really important. The last one, because I think we've done 11, so I'm going to do 12, and that'll be the 12 to answer your question. The 12th one has to do with medicines. And we use a lot of medicines to help trick us into being more awake. So I give a lot of patients medicines like Adderall and Ritalin. These are amphetamine salts. I give a lot of patients medicines like Provigil and Nuvigil, which are stimulant medicines. And these medicines can be fantastically helpful in tricking the human to be awake and to be on point and to be attentive. But if you take them too late in the day, you're not going to sleep. And so taking a Provigil right when you wake up is not going to risk problems with sleep because you're not going to fall asleep in the next 5 hours. But if you're taking a Provigil at 5 p.m., 4 p.m., 3 p.m., even 2 p.m., that might be too late in your day. And it might create a really big problem and contribute to you not being able to sleep. Now, we could do 12 more. We could do 24 more. There's a bunch of different things that we can do to try to improve sleep. And again, I've got YouTube videos on my channel about that. But hopefully, Tyler B., this helps get you started. So thank you for that question. And thank you to everybody in the chat that helped me count to 12 so I didn't forget. Now let's change up the scene. And I am thirsty as all get out because I did not do a good job of drinking water in clinic. Woo! MS Water Challenge, guys. That was delicious. All right. So let's take another question from the chat. And thank you, Angela, for saying this is pretty. I kind of like this background. It's kind of cool. Let's see. So here's a question that I like. And this is from, I think it's Meech. So Meech, if I just said your name wrong, I apologize, but I didn't mean to. So Meech said, good evening. Well, good evening to you. My clinical and test results have made my neurologist's job difficult. How many similarities are there between primary progressive MS? I think this is SPS, at first, I thought this was secondary progressive MS, but I'm actually wondering if they're talking about supranuclear palsy. which is a different condition. And I'm actually on the spot blanking on the proper name. This is a different neurological condition that can affect the spinal cord. So, Meech, I'm sorry because I can't think on the fly of what that acronym stands for. And I don't want to talk about the condition without being able to name it properly. So, I'm sorry. I'm going to have to go on to a different question. I tried. I apologize. Let's see here. Oh, stiff person syndrome. Duh. Okay, sorry. So I can answer your question. So the question is, how similar is primary progressive MS and stiff person syndrome? So they're not very similar in my experience. I've treated 10, 12 people with stiff person syndrome. It's not a very common condition, about 1 in a million. I think there's a famous singer who has stiff person syndrome. And stiff person syndrome is an autoimmune condition. So MS is an autoimmune condition, and stiff person syndrome is an autoimmune condition. MS involves both the innate immune system and the adaptive immune system. And within the adaptive immune system, MS involves both the cellular, the T cells, and the humoral, the B cells. So it involves a lot of the immune system. Stiff person syndrome doesn't. Stiff person syndrome is a problem with just the humoral immune response. And in specific, you make antibodies against something called GAD65. And this is a test that you can send off, and you can find out if the GAD65 is elevated. Now, be careful because diabetes, you can have a mildly elevated GAD65. So it can be up, but not that up. But in the setting of stiff person syndrome, it'll be super high. Like I have a patient right now that I'm following with stiff person syndrome, and her counts were like in the thousands, like 5,000 or something super, super high. And stiff person syndrome is a problem where the person has spasticity, all right? And they have spasticity in a lot of different places. It can be through their core. There's different kinds of stiff person syndrome, but they can have these paroxysms of spasms where they'll kind of get stiff like this. It's very, very painful, and it can be very, very debilitating. Now, stiff person syndrome is treatable. You can treat stiff person syndrome. We start by using things like oral baclofen and Valium, benzodiazepines. I've had a lot of success in the past using intrathecal baclofen pumps to manage stiff person syndrome. And because it's a humoral autoimmune disease, you can use medicines like IVIG. IVIG is a great drug to treat stiff person syndrome because it binds up those GAD65 antibodies and pulls them out of solution. So I have never had great difficulty in differentiating stiff person syndrome from multiple sclerosis. Yes, multiple sclerosis can cause spasticity. It does very often. But multiple sclerosis causes a bunch of other stuff. And the MRI looks abnormal with multiple sclerosis, and it doesn't really look abnormal with stiff person syndrome. So I think that there's a couple different ways of fixing it. And the people in the chat have told me the singer is Celine Dion. I had forgotten her name. And so Linda White said, how do you treat stiff person? So you use medicines to treat the spasticity like baclofen or Valium, and I like to use intrathecal baclofen pumps, very, very effective way of treating spasticity. And we can use immunotherapies like IVIG, or you can use rituximab. You can use B-cell depleters to treat stiff person syndrome. You know, I turned this camera on, 40 minutes ago or something like that, and there's 205 of you that have gone online. That's amazing to me. Thank you very, very much for doing that. That's phenomenal. I wasn't sure whether anybody was out there tonight, and I was missing you, and I thought, what the heck, I really want to say hello, howdy, hi. Let's take another question from the chat. Beverly asks about opinion on marijuana, so medical cannabis. So I have a lot of YouTube videos on this channel about medical cannabis. So I practice in the state of Ohio, and in the state of Ohio, I am a medical cannabis recommender. And I have gone through quite a journey in understanding cannabinoids. So originally, I grew up in the era of just say no to drugs, right? Where drugs are bad. Drugs are bad, okay? And we thought that, cannabis was a drug of abuse. It's bad for you. You shouldn't do it. And then we started to see cannabis being used in some states here in the United States for medical purposes. And that piqued my interest. And so I started to read the medical literature. And it's really, really crappy literature. There's very, very little science studying cannabis. Now, there's more now, but originally there was almost nothing. And because I am a classically trained allopath, an MD, I was really put off by that. And so I poo-pooed it. I said, nah, cannabis that's just bunk. But then something really weird happened. I started to listen to my patients. And I have a very dear patient of mine who is not a spring chicken. And she confided in me that her grandson brought her a doobie. And if she smoked the doobie before bed, she slept better, and she didn't need my Lyrica, and she didn't need my baclofen. I thought, that's weird. And then a couple weeks later, another gal, again, not a spring chicken, who didn't know the first one, told me darn near the same story. And over a period of maybe a year or so, I kept hearing these older women confiding privately to their doctor that they had discovered that if they used medical cannabis, it was helping with things. And I thought that was really, really interesting. And so I went back to the literature, and it still sucked. It still was not very good. But I don't think that all of these nice women who I've been taking care of for years and years were lying. I don't think they all got in a sewing circle and said, ooh, let's all tell Boster the same thing, because they didn't know each other. And so I went through the coursework that you need to go through to become a medical recommender. And I became a cannabis medical recommender in probably like 2019, somewhere around there. And since then, I have really found that cannabis can be very helpful for certain things. So let's start to talk about what it's not helpful for. All right, cannabis does not improve your cognition. In fact, it may worsen your cognition. Now, before you throw stones, lots of other drugs can worsen cognition. Things like gabapentin and Lyrica and baclofen. And some of the bladder medicines. I mean, so that doesn't mean that those are all horrible. I'm just sharing that cannabis is not going to help you think more clearly. I do not find cannabis to help with depression. So I've not found it to help with feeling sad and blue. And it does not help with bladder, and it does not help with balance. These are things that cannabis does not do. What it does seem to help with is insomnia, and it helps with anxiety, and it helps with pain, and it helps with spasticity. And I have a lot of patients that have a lot of symptoms like that. And so I do think that cannabis can be considered, like many other drugs, like a tool. Now, I don't recommend that you smoke cannabis. So earlier in the live stream, I spent a little bit of time talking about my concerns about smoking cigarettes. And I said that if you take a carbon-based material like tobacco or cannabis and light it on fire and it makes smoke, and then you suck in the smoke, that's very pro-inflammatory, and that's bad for you. And I think smoking cannabis probably has the same risks. So I don't recommend that you smoke cannabis. But there's other ways of consuming cannabis. For example, edibles. So they make these cannabis gummies. They're like little gummy bears, and they're typically 10 milligrams of THC. And so I have a lot of patients that have baseline anxiety, baseline spasticity, neuropathic pain, and they will take a gummy or half a gummy once or twice during the day, and it makes those things go away, which is really cool. Also, oftentimes patients have acute onset of spasms where their leg will go into a Charlie horse and hurt like the dickens, or they have neuropathic pain. And you can use something called tincture of cannabis. So it's like an eyedropper vial with a little dropper that you pull liquid cannabis out, put it under your tongue, and there's big blood vessels under your tongue, and it absorbs about 20%. And so that gets in your bloodstream really quickly, and it almost works as quickly as smoking a joint or a blunt or something like this. And then you swallow the rest of it, and so then that's going to kick in like an edible at a delay of about 45 minutes. And so that's a way of getting a quick onset. Now, there's also vape pens. So there are these vaporizers. And when you use a vaporizer, and I'll pretend this is a vaporizer, and you suck on it, sucking on it causes it to heat up the liquid cannabis inside. This is not a vaporizer. This is something for, I think this is for stand for one of my pieces of equipment here. I was using it as a prop. And when you do that, it heats it up below the level of combustion, so it doesn't burn. It doesn't make smoke. It makes vapor, and then you can breathe the vapor in. Now, there's a question as to whether or not the vapor is pro-inflammatory, and it may be pro-inflammatory, but I think it's probably less pro-inflammatory than smoking. So, do I think cannabis is a cure-all? No. Do I think it slows down MS? No. Do I think that it treats all symptoms? No. Can it be helpful? In some things, yes. Now, cannabis also can be addictive. And we used to tell people, oh, that's not possible. But there's a small minority of people that really develop a problem with tolerance and dependence. And so we have to be aware of that. I continue to be a medical marijuana recommender in the state of Ohio, and I think for the right people, it can actually be very useful. So that's my 2 cents. All right, it's 40 after 8, and I'm going to wrap up. I am overjoyed that you guys joined me tonight. Thank you. It was super fun for me. I really, really appreciate you guys supporting my channel here. I'm so excited that you jump online with me tonight in this impromptu Ask Me Anything MS. I will do another live stream this coming Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And so that's Saturday the 23rd, so just in a couple short days. And you can join me then if you'd like to. I would love to see you again. That would be really, really fun. Now, I will continue to make videos about every Monday or every other Monday. I'll continue to do these live streams as long as you guys are still interested. And I just want to say thank you to all of you. You know, when I started this YouTube channel back in, I think around 2015, I didn't know that there would be this really awesome community. And it warms my heart. It really is wonderful. So until the next time I see you, this is Aaron Boster saying thank you for learning about MS with me. And be safe and take care, guys. Have a great night.